Hey everybody, I'm back to take you to school again. Today we are going to be taking a look at the optimal core build of a mono green deck. We're going to look at both a budget version and a more ideal version. The ideal version will get pretty expensive on this one, just to give you a heads up. So let's get this started here. And who do we want for mono green? Do we want Nissa or Garrick? Gary's not getting any attention lately. Let's do Garrick. Okay, so I've got that moved off to the other side. We're not really going to worry about the commander here because we are doing just a core version of this deck. You can tell I just finished another one of these. So I'm going to start with the general disclaimers here. This is by no means an end-all be-all on what should go in a mono green deck. This is just a rough idea. It's fleshing it out. It's giving you ideas of where to begin. And then with the more expensive version, give you an idea of what to strive for. I'm using numbers that are the most optimal ratios that I have personally found for Commander decks in the about 10 years I've been playing Commander. These are just things that are tried and tested over the years for me since I try to build, on average, one new deck every single week. I typically build a lot more than that, but my minimum is usually about a deck a week. So this is giving players new to the format or even new to the game a good idea of where to start with their very first decks in Commander. And give me an idea of what some of the more optimal things to look for are. So with that said, we're going to start on the budget version of mono green. So with our numbers here, now I've got set numbers that are pretty generic, but certain colors break those in different areas. Like on blue, we have way more card draw. On red and black, we have much more removal options. With green, we have way more ramp options. Green does ramp better than any other color in the game. It's almost ridiculous how good green does ramp. So because of that, we're going to break some of the numbers I've been using in other videos like this. So don't seem surprised if these numbers are off by 1 or 2 in different sections. It's definitely intentional. So we're going to start with the mana base for mono green on the budget. For the mana base here, we're looking at about 36 lands and 3 mana rocks. Actually, I think I'm going with 4 on the rocks. I've got a huge database saved here at the house for what I do for depending on what colors I'm playing, and then based on how I'm playing those colors. Look at my notes here. Yeah, so we're doing 4 of the mana rocks. Green also breaks that concept too. So let's start with just the land. When you're playing a single color, I really like running all 3 of the available cycling lands. There's going to be games where you don't want to have every land you draw. You're going to want the option to discard it and draw a new card, which is what the cycle lands do. They come into play tapped, they tap for your color, and then for whatever cost you discard it and draw a new card. So we're going to run all 3 of those, which is Desert of the Indomitable, Slippery Karst, then the last one is Tranquil Thicket. So with these, you've got one that cycles for just a green, one that cycles for 2 colorless, and one that cycles for a green and a colorless. So all 3 of those are definitely going in. Our next one is one of the Visions lands. So Visions is one of the earliest sets in Magic. It was part of Mirage block, and Mirage was like the first block set. We're talking very, very old here. I want to say 95 or 96 was when this block came out. And they did a cycle of lands we just call the Visions lands. They come into play tapped. You have to return an untapped basic to your hand when you play it. And then they tap for one of a color plus a colorless. So in this case, a green and a colorless. They come in and they work a little bit on the slow side. But the thing is, if you miss one of your land drops, but this was one of your land, you actually are ahead one land drop. It gives you a little bit of a mana advantage and can kind of futz around with the numbers when you have a weird draw. So when I'm playing monocolor and I'm in a budget build where I need more value out of more inexpensive cards, I really, really like the Visions lands. So we're putting in Jungle Basin. Our next card is Colony Garden. By the way, please forgive I'm chewing gum. I take medication for the pain in my wrist, and it dries my mouth out horribly. So rather than drink through the entire video and then just have to pee horribly by the end of it, I'm just going to chew gum in this one and see how it goes. So our next one is Colony Garden. It's a really cool card out of Zendikar. Comes into play taps for a green, but when it comes into play, you make a 0/1 green plant creature token. So this gives you a free blocker on top of giving you a land. It comes in handy sometimes. It's not at all a requirement in a lot of decks, but it's a card I really like seeing. Just some extra value, especially in the early turns. You're not going to be casting something on turn 1 or 2 sometimes. So playing this tapped and getting a free creature is quite an advantage. We're also going to include the mono green man land. So it comes into play taps for a green. We're going to see that in a lot of these non-basics. For a green and 1, it becomes a 3/3 green ape creature token with trample until end of turn. So the man lands are freaking great. They're immune to pretty much every board wipe spell, and they're immune to sorcery speed removal. And it's just great after a board wipe to already have a creature there that's able to attack. If you've got someone on the ropes, they're really low on life. They top that amazing Terminus at the last second, but they're still at like 2 life. When it comes back around to you, you've got this 3/3 you can attack them with now that the Terminus couldn't hit. So man lands are great. Again, in monocolor, you always want to run them. When you get up to the multicolors, we're going to see chances where you don't run them. So we'll get there when we get there. We're not in any rush. The next land is the new Memorial to Unity. Comes into play taps for a green. You can also pay 2 a green, tap and sack it to look at the top 5 cards of your deck, reveal a creature from among them, and put it into your hand. And you put the rest on the bottom in a random order. This is great late game when you just need a creature and you didn't draw one. It's like having a land, but then also having a draw spell in a pinch. Having lands that do other things that are valuable is really, really great in Commander. Next one we're running is the Hideaway land, Mosswort Bridge. So Hideaway lands come into play tapped. You look at the top 4 cards of your deck when you play it, put one of them under it face down, and then the rest on the bottom of your deck. This one taps for a green. Then you can pay a green and tap it, and play the exiled card from under it without paying its mana cost if out of all the creatures you control you have a total power of 10 or greater, which in mono green is going to happen pretty easily. Now I want to point out with these cards, you can play lands from underneath them in Paper Magic. You should be able to online, but on Magic Online there's currently a glitch that's not allowing that. I'm hoping it gets patched soon, but until then, be aware. Don't put any lands underneath these on Magic Online. Kind of sucks when you whiff and hit 4 land with it. My stupid nerve damage hand is going to make me type funny again. Our next land is Oran Reef the Vastwood. Great one from Zendikar here. Comes into play taps for a green, or you can tap it and put a +1/+1 counter on each green creature that entered the battlefield this turn. Really good way to get some extra value out of your creatures. Plus, if you play that before you play Colony Garden, that plant token becomes a 1/2. Important thing to keep in mind. Our next one is auto include. Every deck should have a Reliquary Tower. I don't care if you're playing graveyard strategies and you think, oh, I want to be able to discard cards. You don't want to discard them this way. If someone plays a Cyclonic Rift, an Evacuation, if someone's playing Nekusar and they make you draw 20 cards, you want to be able to have access to all of those cards. Without a Reliquary Tower, that's not going to be a good option. So out of the 10 years I've been playing and all the decks I've played, I've only played one single deck that didn't want Reliquary Tower. So that's why I say every single deck needs to have this. There are 2 cards in all of Magic that are an auto-include in every single commander deck. And it's Reliquary Tower and Sol Ring. Do not build a deck without those 2 cards. Always make sure you have enough copies of this for everything you build. Thankfully online I only need 1 copy of them. It's one of the benefits of playing online. Our next land definitely has some extra ability on it. It's Rogue's Passage. Green commanders are pretty stompy. They love to attack. So having a land that can make your creatures unblockable, definitely good. So Rogue's Passage is definitely going in here. Our next one is a ramp spell on a land. Blighted Woodland. Taps for a colorless, or you can pay a green 3 and tap and sack it. Search your library for 2 basic lands and put them onto play tapped. So that will accelerate you by 1 land. Very, very, very good. I love seeing abilities like that on lands. And something pretty much only green gets to do. After that, we're going to be looking for some card draw on a land. Throne of the High City. Taps for a colorless, or you can pay 4 tap and sack to become the Monarch. Monarch is probably one of the best draw mechanics you can get in every color. The way Monarch works is you get an emblem, and it says at the end of your turn, draw a card. And then if any player can deal combat damage to you, they become the Monarch. So they'll steal that emblem. You can always steal it back later. You draw a card the turn you steal it back as well. It's a really solid mechanic to introduce to a commander game. It's one of my personal favorites. And it really adds some good card draw to decks that need it. You'd also be very surprised at how often you actually end up just keeping Monarch for 6 or 7 straight turns. So you can get a lot of value out of that little emblem. Now, the last thing we're looking at is strip lands. Every single deck needs strip lands. Whether you're playing against really expensive stuff like Tabernacle, Gaia's Cradle, Maze of Ith, or you're just playing against the cards that flip into lands from Ixalan. There are a lot of lands that are just extremely powerful and can swing a game in a player's favor. And you want to be able to remove those easily. But you don't always need to remove land. So having that ability on a land that you're just tapping for mana usually gives you the flexibility to remove a land when you need to and still do stuff with the card when you don't. So when we're looking in budget, the first one we look at is Ghost Quarter. This sacrifices to destroy a land, and its controller can search their library for a basic land and put it into play. And then the second one we're looking at is Tectonic Edge. Now, Modern's starting to look at this card as a replacement for Ghost Quarter, so the price may begin to fluctuate a little. If you come across this video down the line and this card's gotten stupidly expensive, I apologize. It was still $1 when I made this video. So Tectonic Edge, you pay a 1 tap and sack it and destroy a non-basic land. But you can only do it if someone has 4 or more lands, so you can't really land screw someone with it, which you never want to do in Commander anyway. Destroying people's lands is a good way to make enemies and not get invited back to play Commander again. So just keep that in mind. So after that, we're going to add our basics. For this deck, we're doing 21 forests. So that gives us 36 lands for the core of the deck. We have Blighted Woodland, Desert of the Indomitable, Ghost Quarter, Jungle Basin, Colony Garden, Memorial to Unity, Mosswort Bridge, Oran Reef the Vastwood, Reliquary Tower, Rogue's Passage, Treetop Village, Tranquil Thicket, Throne of the High City, Tectonic Edge, Slippery Karst, and 21 basic forests. Now we need to look at our mana rocks. I keep doing the little scare quotes on that because these aren't all going to be rocks. So for mono green on a budget, we still play Sol Ring, of course. As I said, you don't get out of playing Sol Ring. Scroll that up a little bit. Our next one is going to be one of the diamonds. Moss Diamond. For 2 mana, comes in tapped and taps for a green. Also apparently makes your arm extra hairy. And now we're getting our interesting ones that are not really rocks. They're elves. Llanowar Elves and Fyndhorn Elves. So these are 1 green for a 1/1 that happens to tap for a green. Very, very useful cards. You can attack with it, you can make mana with it, they ramp. They're beautiful. Like, absolutely beautiful. So that gives us our 40 cards here. So remember the mana rocks, or Sol Ring, Fyndhorn Elves, Llanowar Elves, and Hairy Arm Moss Diamond. Now we're going to look at mana ramp. Most decks are going to run 6 of these. Because we're in green and we're doing this so well, we're going to be running 7. Our first one is my good buddy Steve. Comes in 2 arts. I like the promo one best. So Sakura Tribe Elder. For a green and 1, you get a 1/1. You can sack him to search your library for a basic land card, put it on the battlefield tapped, and shuffle your library. Ideally, you want to drop him, block something coming in your way, and as soon as it's blocked, sacrifice him to go get the land. You still block the creature, you get some ramp out of it. The card pulls double duty that way. The fact he doesn't cost anything to activate makes him even better. Like, why would you play Rampant Growth when you can play a creature and Rampant Growth whenever? Love Steve. We call him Steve because STE. I don't know where they added the extra VE, but Steve. Next one we're going to do is Wood Elves. Gotta love that Rebecca Guay artwork. Green and 2 for a 1/1. When it enters the battlefield, search your library for a forest card. So on future builds, we can do dual lands with this guy. Put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. Does not come in tapped. You can use it the turn you play it. And then you've got a nice little chump blocker as well. See, I told you green does this really well. Because green does this so well, the green medallion is still a budget card. It's only about $1.20. So 2 mana for an artifact. Green spells cost you 1 less to cast. That will add up when you cast multiple spells in a turn. For all the other colors, the medallions run about $10 each. But green doing ramp so well, a lot of times you don't really need that. That said, on this budget build, we're going to take advantage of it. Our next one might just be the best ramp spell ever printed. Cultivate. For a green and 2, you get a sorcery. Search your deck for 2 basic land cards and reveal them. Put 1 onto the battlefield tapped and the other in your hand, then shuffle your library. If you haven't made your land drop that turn, you basically are playing 2 land. Absolutely love Cultivate. There's multiple versions of it too. You can get it in Kadama's Reach as well. And you can also get it in Nissa's Pilgrimage. So since we're playing mono green, this card actually becomes amazing. For a green and 2, same cost, same speed as the sorcery. Search your library for up to 2 basic forest cards. There's your drawback. It's not a drawback when all your basic lands are forests. Reveal those cards. Put 1 onto the battlefield tapped and the rest into your hand. Then shuffle your library. Why doesn't it say put the other 1 into your hand? Why does it say the rest? Well, if you have Spell Mastery, if there are 2 or more instants and or sorcery cards in your graveyard, search your library for up to 3 basic forests instead of 2. So this gets you 3 basic land. Very, very, very good. It's actually better than Cultivate when you're playing just mono green. Oh, that's going to turn up too many cards. Next one is Search for Tomorrow. So for a green and 2, search your deck for a basic land card and put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. So you get to put it in untapped. But here's the trick. You can suspend it for 2 turns for a single green. That means you exile it with 2 time counters on it. And at the beginning of your upkeep, you remove a time counter. Once all of them are removed, you cast it for free. So if you play this on turn 1, that means on turn 3, with no other ramp, you're going to have 4 land to use. This is just all around really good, inexpensive ramp. I mean, you still play a late game for the 3 mana as well. But being able to get a land out untapped, just really nice. And then our last ramp card is going to be Pier's Whim, one of the new ones from Battle Bond. So I'm sure if you've watched all of these videos by now, you know I'm really big on the friend or foe cycle of cards. They're just so much value packed into them. The fact that you can generate drawback for all of your opponents while getting something good for yourself. Or if you've got an opponent you want to do some teamwork with, you can help one person out. So for this one, for each player you choose friend or foe. Each friend searches their library for a land card, not a basic, then puts it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffles their library. Each foe sacrifices an artifact or enchantment they control. So this is removal for your opponents and land ramp for you. This is a beautiful card. I think this may be my favorite card from Battle Bond too. Snatch that up before the price goes up on it. I think it's sitting at 50 cents right now. Something tells me in the long term that's probably going to be a $5 or $10 card. So there's our 7 ramp spells for green budget. We're looking at Emerald Medallion, our good friend Steve, Sakura Tribuilder, Cultivate, Nissa's Pilgrimage, Search for Tomorrow, Wood Elves, and Pier's Whim. Next up, we're looking at card draw. Green used to be really terrible with card draw, but in the last several years, they've really started giving it some great card draw that flavors around its mechanics. I wish they'd do this for white. So we've got some really cool options now. Our first one is going to be from the brand new set, M19, Runic Armasaur. So 2 green and 1 for a 2/5 dinosaur. Whenever an opponent activates an ability of a creature or land that is not a mana ability, you may draw a card. In Commander, this is going to happen a lot. I've seen games where I've drawn like 20 cards off this card, and with a 5 toughness, he's going to stick around a while. Not to mention, it might just be my favorite dinosaur. I kind of like Stegosaurus. So that's a great start to it. Our next one is Soul of the Harvest. It's a elemental for 2 green and 4, a 6/6 trample. So it's a great creature on top of everything else. Whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may draw a card. Optional draw, something you're going to get pretty frequently. You can chain your creatures because green's always going to be playing tons of creatures. Just very, very good card, and it can definitely deliver the beats when it needs to. The next one is one of my favorite cards. I call it my Pokedex. Really looks like someone's using a Pokedex on that critter in the background. So Lifecrafter's Bestiary. It's a 3-cost artifact. At the beginning of your upkeep, you scry 1. If it just did that, I would still play it because that's so valuable. But that's not all it does. Whenever you cast a creature spell, you can pay a green. If you do, draw a card. That's outstanding. You get 2 really great abilities on a single artifact. And somehow this card is still only $1. Mind blown. I love that thing. Then our last 2 cards here are based off how many creatures you control. Shamanic Revelation is the first one. You can get a foil copy of this for like a dime because they printed promos for everyone. 2 green and 3 for sorcery. Draw a card for each creature you control. Ferocious. If you gain 4 life for each creature you control at power 4 or greater. I typically gain 12 to 20 life when I play this and draw about 5 cards off of it. It's great value. Late games, when you want to fill your hand back up, you've typically got a bunch of creatures in play, meaning you're playing green, right? Now the next one takes it a little bit further, and I definitely like this one even more. Rishkar's Expertise. 2 green and 4 for sorcery. Draw cards equal to the greatest power among creatures you control. Then you may cast a card with converted mana cost 5 or less from your hand without paying its mana cost. Wow. Just wow. That means essentially you're drawing a bunch of cards for 1 green mana. Because you're getting a 5-cost spell for free. And you're not just getting a 5-cost spell that you already had in your hand. It can be out of the ones you drew. This is beautiful. That might be the best card draw spell in green. And again, it's only like $1. Like, what's the market thinking right now? This is the best card draw spell in probably the strongest color in Commander. I don't know why this isn't more expensive. I'm glad it's not more expensive, but I don't know why it isn't. So for our 5 card draw spells we're playing in here, we're looking at Runic Armasaur, Shamanic Revelation, Rishkar's Expertise, Soul of the Harvest, and my Pokedex, Lifecrafter's Bestiary. Now we need to look at targeted removal. So again, green does a lot of this off the back of creatures, which is so valuable. You get an attacker or a blocker out of the same card. It's getting double the value out of something. Our first one is going to be Reclamation Sage, and I wish this was the only art for the card. I really dislike the version that you get in every other printing. So definitely try and seek this one out. For a green and 2, you get a 2/1 Elf. Elf is usually an important creature type for green. When it enters the battlefield, destroy target artifact or enchantment. Oh, and it's a maze, so if you just need a creature and there's nothing to target, no harm, you don't have to hit your own stuff. Honestly, one of the best removal cards you can get. Our next one might be the best removal card you can get. Acidic Slime. This goes in almost every green deck I've ever seen. For 2 green and 3, you get a 2/2 Ooze with Death Touch. When it enters the battlefield, destroy an artifact, enchantment, or land. Whatever's bugging you, it's gone, and you've now got a Death Touch blocker to ward things off with. And if you can blink that thing, oh my god, welcome to Value Town. This next one, it is an 8-cost card. Well, we're playing green. We got the most ramp out of any color. We can afford this. 2 green and 6 for a 9/9 Elephant. When it enters the battlefield, you may destroy up to 3 target non-creature permanents. For each one put into the graveyard this way, its controller creates a 3/3 green elephant creature token. So you're going to throw some cheap little token blockers out there. 3/3 is fairly big for a token, but you have a 9/9. You don't care. In a pinch, you can destroy your own cards to get some emergency blockers. The fact you get to kill 3 cards off this one thing and get a 9/9 out of it, it's just such a high value reward on this card. And whenever you can get more power than the converted mana cost, you're typically doing something right. So Terastodon, it'd probably be more expensive, but they've printed it in about a dozen sets. So it's very, very simple to find one. Our next one is very, very efficient removal, and some of the only creature removal you can get in green. Beast Within. Green and 2, destroy target permanent. Its controller creates a 3/3 green beast creature token. So kill anything you want, even a creature, for 3 mana at instant speed. Pretty small drawback on it when you think about it. Our next one is the only thing that can kill Sensei's Divining Top, Krosan Grip. A green and 2 for an instant with Split Second that destroys an artifact or enchantment. So Split Second, for as long as this is on the stack, players can't cast spells or activate abilities that aren't mana abilities. Triggered abilities can still go on the stack, but you can't counterspell this. You can't play an activated ability of something like, say, an Oblivion Stone or an Veneral's Disc. They can't activate it in response. You can just shut down pretty much anything with Krosan Grip, especially infinite combos. If you're playing green, I honestly think Krosan Grip should always be in your deck. Then our last target of removal is going to be Relic Crush. A green and 4 for an instant. Destroy target artifact or enchantment, and up to 1 other target artifact or enchantment. So you get to pick off 2 things at instant speed. Very, very nice card. So for our targeted removal in here, we have Beast Within, Krosan Grip, Reclamation Sage, Relic Crush, Acidic Slime, and Terastodon, so 6 removal spells. Now we're going on to the last part of the deck, which is board wipes. So we're looking at 2 board wipes here. Our first one is the one I just mentioned, the Veneral's Disc. It's an artifact for 4, comes into play tapped, and you pay 1 and tap it to destroy all artifacts, creatures, and enchantments. It leaves planeswalkers and lands alone. Fun little bit of trivia. This card's been around since Alpha. It's been amazing since its first printing. The reason why you've never seen the name Veneral a second time in Magic is because this is one of Richard Garfield's friends who helped him with the game originally. It's his name backwards, Larry Nevin, or Niven, however it's pronounced. But yeah, I've never put his name anywhere else in the game, but that's his design back then. So that's our first board wipe. Our second one doesn't hit creatures. We're kind of relying on green to be able to outswarm with creatures and just play bigger shit. So what we're looking at is, let's destroy the other things. Wave of Vitriol. So sorcery for 2 green and 5. Each player sacrifices, so this gets around indestructible, all artifacts, enchantments, and non-basic lands they control. For each land sacrificed this way, its controller can search their library for a basic land, put it onto the battlefield tapped. So this gets rid of all artifacts, all enchantments, and all non-basic lands. And you don't have to feel like a dick at the table for killing everybody's lands and then that's it. They have the option to get some basic lands back. Sometimes they may not have as many basics as they had non-basics, so you can reap a little bit of card advantage there. But you're not the jerk that's never going to be invited back. You're still letting them have lands and still continue to play. So that's 60 cards. This is our core deck build for a budget mono green deck that should be able to handle pretty much any commander in mono green. And it gives you about 40 cards to flesh out the deck and decide what you want to do with your commander and basically build in that flavor that makes your deck yours. So again, As I scroll through it here, take the time, you can pause your YouTube, take notes on this, however you want to do it. We're looking at special numbers for green, 36 land and 4 mana rocks for our 40 mana sources, 7 ramp spells, 5 card draw spells, 6 targeted removal spells, and 2 board wipes. This should be the core of a mono green deck when you're on a budget. I think every single card here in paper will cost you under $1, and online are going to be, God, less than a dime each, more than likely. I think Soul Ring is the most expensive card in here at $250, no matter whether you're online or in paper. So this is all well and good if you're on a budget. But what do we do if you don't have a budget to be concerned about? Well, I need to refresh my throat a little bit. Gum is not cutting it. So we are going to go non-budget now. And I'm going to give you a warning. This shit's going to get pricey. Green is arguably the most powerful color in EDH. And the prices definitely reflect that. So let's start with our mana base again. We're still working with all those same numbers from before. We're going to start with all 3 cycle lands again. Let me shrink this down so we can see everything at the same time again. So we have all 3 of the cycle lands still. And again, we're looking for lands with value. We are going to find them in this color. We still play Blighted Woodland. Here's where the money comes in. Gaia's Cradle. This is a $450 card in paper and like $15 online. So it doesn't even fit the normal like penny prices that you normally find online. It's a legendary land that gives you a green for each creature you control. Oh my god, this card gets out of control some games. Let me rephrase that. Oh my god, this card gets out of control most games. Yeah, that's better. Next, this goes in all my upper tier monocolor decks. Nykthos Shrine to Nyx. Taps for a colorless or pay 2 and tap, choose a color. Get an amount of mana of that color equal to your devotion to that color. Monocolor decks get devotion pretty easily, so this should be able to tap for 10 to 20 mana, no problem. So you'll definitely get some value from that. We're still going to be playing Oran Reef, the Vastwood. We're still going to be playing Reliquary Tower, because remember, we don't play decks without Reliquary Tower. Listen to your teacher here. We still want Rogue's Passage. Almost every green commander is going to want that. New one here, Scavenger Grounds. So it's a desert land, taps for colorless. Pay 2 tap and sacrifice a desert. Most often than not, it's going to be this card itself. Exile all cards from all graveyards. There's a lot of decks in Commander that rely on their graveyard, and you want to be able to shut that down when you need to. So this is an unassuming land. People will forget it's there. You're going to get stuck under a Mirren deck with their Spore Frog. They'll sack the Spore Frog to prevent all combat damage, and then you exile their graveyard so they can't ever do it again. Scavenger Grounds is wonderful. We're still going to run Memorial to Unity. Quite fond of that one of the memorials. Still going to run the Manland, Treetop Village. I don't know, Manland or Ape Land? Same thing. Men are mostly apes, we all know this. Here's something really cool only green has. Dryad Arbor. It's a land that's also a creature, so you get a 1/1 for no casting cost, at the drawback of your land having Summoning Sickness. Absolutely love that card, and oh my god, this art is just so beautiful. Original printing, I'm not too big on that art. Some people like it though. Our next land generates a butt ton of value. This is up to like $55 in paper now. Yavimaya Hollow. Legendary land that taps for colorless, or pay a green and tap it to regenerate target creature. And save something from a board wipe or whatever removal. People will forget this is there. Because again, people don't normally look at your land. So it's just going to hide back there, and then all of a sudden they go to kill something and like, oops, it accidentally didn't die. We're still going to run the Hideaway land, Mosswort Bridge. And now for our 2 strip lands. Since we're not on a budget, we're going to have access to the best 2 in the format, which are Field of Ruin, which when you sack it to strip a land, everybody gets a basic. So this will replace itself for you and make you a couple friends at the table. And then our second strip land is the original Strip Mine. They did made it perfect on the first try, so why bother changing it? And then basics. This is actually the lowest number of basics in a 1-color deck out of all the ones I've done for this series. We're only going to do 19 for us. Feels weird going below 20. But this is our 36 lands to work with for the non-budget build. Blighted Woodland, Desert of the Indomitable, Dryad Arbor, Field of Ruin, Gaia's Cradle, Memorial to Unity, Mosswarp Bridge, Nykthos, Shrine to Nyx, Oran-Reef the Vastwood, Reliquary Tower, Yavimaya Hollow, Treetop Village, Tranquil Thicket, Strip Mine, Slippery Karst, Scavenger Grounds, Rogue's Passage, and 19 basic forests. So now we need to do our mana rocks. It's going to be kind of the same as last time, just we end up with a better mana rock in the first spot. Coming in at a minimum of $100, we have Mana Crypt. 0-cost mana rock that taps for 2 mana. Still, we have the card that must be included, Soul Ring. Listen to your teacher. Soul Ring, Reliquary Tower. Don't play EDH without them. And then we're going to run 2 mana dorks. Fyndhorn Elves and Llanowar Elves are my personal taste. You can also run, what's the name of the other one? Elvish Mystic. It's the exact same card. I like those arts better. That's all it really comes down to. That's personal preference. So our mana rocks again are Mana Crypt, Soul Ring, Fyndhorn Elves, and Llanowar Elves. So now we're going into our ramp. Now, how do we do ramp when we're not on a budget? Well, we learn how to type, and we still bring Steve to the party. Next, we go for one of the more expensive cards, Oracle of Moldiah. For a green and 3, she's a 2/2 elf shaman. You can play an additional land on each of your turns. You play with the top card of your deck revealed, and you can play the top card of your library if it's a land. So when you have a land on top, play that card on top, even if you have a land in your hand. It functions as card draw when you do that. So it's way more efficient. This card is overdue for a reprint. I think she's up to like $35 now. Our next one is going to earn you some enemies, but it's just so powerful. Vorinclex Voice of Hunger. Play this only if your playgroup is okay with it. Some playgroups will not invite you back if they see you playing it. 2 green and 6 for a 7/6 Praetor with Trample. Whenever you tap a land for mana, add 1 mana of any type that land produced. When an opponent taps the land for mana, that land doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. That is so mean. I've seen a lot of people that house rule this, just ignore that last paragraph. If your paper group is down with that, you can do it. But if we're being honest with ourselves and doing top level power for this, Vorinclex is definitely one of the most powerful ramp spells you can get. Up next, we're still doing Nissa's Pilgrimage. Again, that's even better than Cultivate when you're playing mono green. We're still getting Peer involved in this with his friend Toothy. We're playing Peer's Whim. Next one might look like overkill to some people, but Growing Rites of Itlamok. When it enters the battlefield, it's a green and 2 for a legendary enchantment. Look at the top 4 cards of your library. You can reveal a creature from among them and put it into your hand and put the rest on the bottom. So when you play it, it'll draw you a creature, which is kind of nice. I mean, there are times when you're going to whiff and not hit a creature, but typically you're going to get a creature. At the beginning of your end step, if you control 4 or more creatures, which is not difficult in green, transform it. So when it transforms, it's Itlamok, Cradle of the Sun. This is one of the cards we play strip lands for. Tap it for a green, or tap for a green for each creature you control. Hey, that sounds a lot like Gaia's Cradle. You're right. Didn't I say Gaia's Cradle is one of the most powerful cards in Magic? Wouldn't it be nice to have 2 of them in a deck? And break the EDH rule. Here you go. There's your 2 Gaia's Cradles. And then our last one is going to be Mana Reflection. 2 green and 4 for an enchantment. If you tap a permanent for mana, it produces twice as much of that mana instead. So this makes your Soul Ring tap for 4, makes your Mana Dorks tap for extra mana. Just, oh, it's so good. If you have Vorinclex out and you tap a forest for 2 green, it actually makes 4 green. Just, there's so much value in this card. I think it's sitting at around $30 in paper now. It's like a nickel online. So there is our 7 ramp spells for mono green. Sakura Tribe Elder, Growing Rites of Itlamok / Itlamok Cradle of the Sun, Nissa's Pilgrimage, Oracle Moldiah, Peer's Whim, Mana Reflection, and Vorinclex, Voice of Hunger. You can replace Vorinclex with something else if you end up not liking that suggestion. He's an acquired taste. So now we're going to look at card draw. And we're breaking our rules again. We're going to be going with 6 cards on this one. Green just has some really good options on this when you don't have to worry about the price. We're still doing Runic Armasaur. Still love our friendly little Stegosaur. We're still doing my Pokedex, Lifecrafter's Bestiary. We're adding in Genesis Wave. I count this as card draw when I'm working on my decks. For 3 green and X, it's a sorcery. Reveal the top X cards of your library. You may put any number of permanent cards that converted mana cost X or less from among them onto the battlefield. Then put all cards revealed this way that weren't put onto the battlefield into your graveyard. So you're typically going to play this for around 6 to 7 mana. So this means every land it reveals goes into play, and then every permanent card that costs 6 or less is going to be going into play. So you're basically drawing 6 cards and casting them all for free and ramping all the land for free. This is just a really efficient way to get some card advantage. And I've seen this card actually win a lot of games when it's done for like 20 or even more than that. The highest I've seen is I think around 40, which was just kind of ridiculous. Rishkar's Expertise is still going to be going in. I stand by my case that is the most powerful draw spell in green. Next up is Sylvan Library. This is an amazing card originally printed in Legends. My personal thing, avoid the original art. It was done by a white supremacist who was very proud he stuck hooded clan members into a card in Legends. He didn't get invited back after doing the set Legends. But for some reason, his art stuck around for several sets on this card. So if you get the updated art, which is this one, see that you can stick to it. I don't like seeing his cards represented anywhere, but this is an expensive card. I get it if you can't. Just a personal little side story there. So for a green and 1, it's an enchantment. At the beginning of your draw step, you may draw 2 additional cards. If you do, choose 2 cards in your hand drawn this turn. For each of those cards, pay 4 life or put it back on top of your library. We're playing a format with 40 life. It's very easy to nick a couple extra cards off of this, or at the very least, essentially scry the top 3 cards of your deck every turn and choose the best one out of them. People will go out of their way for Sensei's Divining Top to get that ability, but you can get it every turn for free after you've cast this. So Sylvan Library is wonderful. It does have a combo. If you can play Abundance, 2 green and 2 for an enchantment. If you would draw a card, you may instead choose land or non-land and reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a card of the chosen type. Put that card into your hand and put all others revealed this way on the bottom of your library in any order. So what this does is you choose to do the 2 additional cards, and it gets replaced with abundance effects, which aren't drawing. Then this says, if you did draw the 2 cards, but you didn't draw any cards, you did abundance triggers. So with those 2 out, you get to use abundance 3 times every draw step with no drawback. You don't have to pay the life or anything. That is just an amazing 2-card combo in green. I highly encourage playing it. I think it's wonderful. When I've hit it, it's been game defining. So that's just a fun little combo I wanted to make you aware of, in case you didn't know it. Our last card draw card is going to be Garruk, Caller of Beasts. So we have a Garruk Planeswalker for 2 green and 4, comes in with 4 loyalty. We care most about this +1. Reveal the top 5 cards of your library. Put all creature cards revealed this way into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. You could draw 5 cards off of him every turn. Oh my god, that's so much value. That's not even bringing in the fact he's got 2 other abilities. Just that +1, even getting it just once is great. But doing it multiple times, he's so beautiful. The only drawback is he seems to only work well in a mono green deck. But that's what we're working on here. So his other 2 abilities, -3, you may put a green creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. So it gets around casting things, so it can't be countered, and you don't have to pay your costs. His -7, you get an emblem with, whenever you cast a creature spell, you may search your library for a creature card, put it onto the battlefield, and then shuffle your library. Oh my god. Not only are you getting a free creature every time you play a creature, you don't even have to pay for it. Gary is our friend. So we've got 6 draw spells in here now. The 6 draw spells are Sylvan Library, Lifecrafter's Bestiary, Runic Armasaur, Garruk, Caller of Beasts, Rishkar's Expertise, and Genesis Wave. Now we're going to go on to our targeted removal. At least this keeps its traditional number at 6. So we're still going to do Reclamation Sage. Remember, always get your good art for this card. We're going to do our good friend Acidic Slime. I actually have my paper one altered to have a Slurm advertisement from Futurama on it, with Bender, the Slurm King, and Fry. I like my cartoon alters. We're still playing Beast Within. You'll notice most of these aren't changing. We're still playing Corrosive Grip. A lot of the best removal in green is actually pretty cheap cards. This one is not cheap, and this may be one of the best removal cards ever printed. Song of the Dryads. It's an aura for green and 2. Enchant permanent, so you can put it on anything. Enchanted permanent is a colorless forest land. Oops, did I turn your commander into a land and you can't get it back in the command zone now? It taps for a green and that's all it does. Oh, I'm sorry I screwed up your commander, or your planeswalker, or that annoying ass enchantment, or whatever your best creature was, or that artifact you needed. This handles everything. And in Commander, if you just kill something and put it in a graveyard, or put a commander back in the command zone, they're just going to cast it again. This keeps it in play and keeps it useless. Just such a wonderful card. I can't think of a green deck I've built without that card in it since it got printed in 2014. Okay, our last targeted removal is going to be on a Planeswalker. Freyalise Llanowar's Fury. 2 green and 3. She's 3 loyalty Planeswalker. Her +2 creates a mana dork, a 1/1 elf druid that taps for a green. We're interested in this middle one for -2. Destroy target artifact or enchantment. The fact that that's reusable. Every other turn, we can kill a permanent. That is such a high value. People don't really look at her as a threat because they just see that little mana dork producer. And they're going to see you making mana dorks every turn, which are good little blockers to have out for her. But that -2 is just going to eat every problematic card around the board if she stays out long enough. Even if she only does it once, you're still getting that value, plus you're not taking an attack. She's taking it for you. Then her -6, if you need it, is draw a card for each green creature you control. So she's also card draw. She does quite a bit and is possibly the best planeswalker in mono green for Commander. So yeah, I love Freyalise. Oh, that's all 6 of our removal spells. So our removal spells we're looking at are Beast Within, Krosan Grip, Reclamation Sage, the absolutely amazing Song of the Dryads, Acidic Slime, and Freyalise. I feel like I missed one, but I think that's it. And then our last thing we're looking at is board wipes. You should be familiar with this first one by now because it tends to go in a lot of decks that aren't white. Oblivion Stone, 3-cost artifact. Typically you're just going to pay 5 and sack it to destroy all non-land permanents. But you can also, if it sticks around for a while, put fake counters on different permanents that you want to not be destroyed. It doesn't happen often, but that is an optional ability with this. Typically, you just pay 8 mana and blow the whole board up. Especially in green, it's easy just to have that 8 mana. Now we've got a similar one for our second board wipe that just costs 1 more mana to use. It's Perilous Vault. For 4 mana, you cast it, 5-tap, and exile it to exile all non-land permanents. So this will really ruin the day of like a Muldrotha player or something. This is a board wipe where nothing comes back. You get rid of indestructible cards. It's one of my favorite board wipes. I tend to rely on it a lot when I don't have access to white and the better board wipes in the game. So this is what we're looking at for an optimized mono green commander skeleton. Let's go ahead and blow this up and I'll scroll through it slowly for you. This is the time where you can start pausing your YouTube feed and taking your notes. So we're looking at 36 land and 4 mana rocks for 40 mana sources in the deck. We're looking at 7 ramp spells, 6 card draw spells, 6 targeted removal, and 2 board wipes. So again, remember, these are not absolutes. Any of this can be changed to fit whatever style you like. But as far as I'm concerned, this is an ideal shell for a generic mono green commander when you don't have to fret about what your budget is. This leaves you 39 cards to pick a commander and personalize the deck and flavor it out for that commander. This will holster just about any commander in mono green you can think of. I can't think of hardly anyone that wouldn't be good in here. But I hope that helped. I've given you a starting point for mono green and a place to look to move toward as you can afford it. If you have any questions about this, don't forget to leave them in the comments on YouTube or hit me up on my Twitter stream at Sky Spider. And if you have any requests for future videos, don't hesitate to ask. And feel free to subscribe because I will be doing every single color combination. Slowly making my way through them. This is the last of the mono colors, so my next video starting up will be covering the 10 guilds, all the 2-color decks. So until next time, thank you for letting me take you to school, and I will see you next time.